Interact HRMS is a global HRMS solution that is highly configurable. It can be configured to meet the needs of the client, and it is an enterprise HRMS, which is modular, which means that you can set it up the way you want to, and you can choose the modules that you want to use. In fact, there are more than 85 modules in the system. It starts with recruitment, where applicants can apply for jobs and fill in an application form and get an applicant portal, and then it continues into hiring, the payroll and leave management, time and attendance, and then employee development, talent management, and obviously offboarding when an employee leaves the organization. So we really cover everything from hire to retire. Before we start, I need to give you a quick orientation, which is that up here I have the key elements that make up the system, the structure of the system, the organization structure, the employee groups, the jobs that you have, but also the employees, managers and supervisors, and so on. Here I have my favorite menus that I want to have frequent access to. They're up to me what I want there. Here I have access to KPIs that I can monitor and view different information in different ways. And here I have more KPIs, as you can tell. And up here I can access the data that I want to have access to. If I want to get a performance management plan, for example, then I can either have my shortcut right here, otherwise I would just type it, or type something that's close to it. Let's try just say perform plan, and you will find the performance plan list in terms of reports, or maybe it's something else I want the actual talent management performance plan. I can get that right here, and I will find the details for the different people. So one of the most important things in the system is the employee electronic record. So let's take a look at Donovan, who is one of our employees. We'll take a look at his employee electronic record. We'll see that he has a set of skills. We have his details right here, his demographic information. We have his education, his skills, his experience, the job that he's currently in. And note that he has 2 jobs at 2 different rates. We have his leave records. We can see his competency evaluation, his training records, his career plan, his performance evaluations, his succession plan, and we also have a copy of his passport and his visa in case you have any expatriate employees. Here you have any other information that you might find important to track on your employees, emergency contacts, payroll information, the payroll stubs, basically the pay stubs, the timesheets, the schedule of the employee, and so on. All of that is available, including a very detailed history of the employee in terms of movements, transfers, promotions, changes to the employment agreement, and so on. Everything is there whenever you need it. Now what we want to show you here real quick today is a quick idea of what this product can do and what it would look like for you as a client. First of all, you will see a very powerful KPI engine that allows you to view the data that you want to see in different formats, shapes, and forms. You can analyze your data. You can give different people access to the information in different ways. Secondly, you have the ability to define your organization structure whichever way you need it. For example, here I have a list of random departments which are typical in municipalities. So if I want to take a look at the budget office, I'll get right here the details, and you will find that the budget office reports to the Directorate of Financial Services, and the head of the budget office is Cedric. And then you will find more classification options. You will find that throughout our product, Interact HRMS has the ability to classify things pretty much anywhere where it makes sense. So that allows you to set up rules and policies and to run reports based on groups of information, based on types of units, for example, in this case, my organization units, or based on jobs, or based on specific groups of employees. So you can always group and classify things so you get the information that you want. In addition, in this case, for example, you could have different locations. Each organization unit can have its own location, and so on. We'll come back to this in a minute. What I want to show you is that this budget office is set up, as I mentioned, to report to the financial services, but you have multiple reporting lines, so you can set up as much as you want there. You have the different jobs of people that work in the budget office and the people that are hired in that job right now. So you get a list of the employees and information about their current pay, etc. And you have a position budget. If that is set up, then you would be able to see the particular budget for that particular unit. We'll come back to that later. Then you have the organization chart. So the organization chart is automatically created based on the setup that we have. And here you find we have the mayor, we have the municipal manager, and then we have the directorates for corporate service, community service, and so on. So there's just some examples right here. Technical services. If I want to look at the community services and the corporate services, I see the detail here. So you can see that the product really allows you to go as far as you want. There's no limit in terms of the number of reporting lines, the number of units, the granularity of the units that you want to define. You can actually define specific activities within a unit if you wanted to, if you need to track that for financial purposes and so on. You can also set up performance goals and strategic goals and track risks for each individual unit. Secondly, we're going to have our employee groups. So you define the types of employee groups that you need to track. It could be just a simple distinction between salaried or monthly and bi-weekly and semi-monthly and so on. It could be any other type of distinction. For each employee group, you will have a set of policies, your payroll and compensation policies, your time and leave policies, and so on. All of that is highly configurable. If I open up the administration staff employee group that I have here, then I'm going to get the details on how we pay our administration staff. They're salaried, they're paid full-time, the weekends, the Sundays and Saturdays, and so on. All of this setup is configurable based on your specific requirements. The system that you want us to integrate with for your financial system, all of that is configurable, and there are many more options than the ones that are listed. You have your own payroll calendar, you have your own leave accruals and rules that apply to that, and much more. You have your own holiday calendar. The general ledger setup, we support up to 11 segments that you can see right here, including fund source, position code, location code, activity and project codes, of course, in addition to the standard natural account. So there is a lot of things that can be configured in this system, but I'm not going to go through the detail on that right now. What I just want to show you is that we have loaded your list of job titles also, or at least a relevant list of job titles. And for each one of those job titles, the system will again have a very detailed definition of everything that we're looking at. You see there's a whole library of information about jobs and a very strong classification options. This will be used for employment equity reporting and much more. You have the job description, you have education requirements for the job, skills required, certifications, interview questions that must be asked during the interview process, because Interact also supports its own recruiting, has its own recruiting module, and then competencies and training associated with the job, even risks associated with the job. There's a lot of data here. Now, what I want to show you really here is the integration that is available in the system. So what we'll do now is we're going to hire a new employee real quick, and we'll look at how easy it can be to put that new employee in the system with the absolutely minimal amount of data that we need, and based on the setup that we really have from the start. Depends on how you've configured the system to see if you need this particular information. But I'm hiring this person as an accountant in the budget office, and she will belong to the support staff. Based on that selection that I've made, the system now knows that this employee will in fact be receiving a certain amount and type of allowances, benefits, earnings, deductions, and so on based on the setup that we have in our system. All of that is configurable. It also applies to the leave entitlements and the accrual rates for that leave, etc. We're not going to get into that level of detail right now. I'm putting in a specific employment contract type for her, and I will select a picture real quick, and then we're going to proceed with hiring the employee. All we did is fill in the absolute minimal information right now, so that we can put this person in the system. So now we have the new employee in the system, and now we're going to find our employee and give her a quick username and self-service. But more than that, I would like to show you the integration between the different applications. So if we go and look for Amy now in our list of employees, we'll get immediately the quick view, as we call it, which is a configurable short view or quick view of what this employee is all about. It will display the information that we want to see in this. So this will be the employee electronic profile. It will have her education and her skills and her experience. In my case, all of that is empty because I just hired the employee, as you have noticed. I also have passport information, miscellaneous information. Basically, there's no limit to the amount of information that you could track on an employee record. Now, I'm just going to give her a quick username and password. Which I've done now. And I'm going to put a note on her record that says Amy needs to enroll her fingerprint by the 23rd. Latest. Okay, so we will do this right away. We'll put the note here. Now, next time I log in, you notice my system is giving me what we call a sticky note. It actually sticks on the screen and tells you what is pending. I'm going to ignore it for now. In fact, I'm going to take care of it right now, which means that I will go in and prepare to send her data to my time clock. Because we have a time clock right here, which I will show you on a separate recording. And you will find that this time clock currently does not recognize
Please try again.
my fingerprint. It says please try again. However, what we're going to do is we're going to synchronize the data with the time clock, which means I'm going to compare if there is any data missing from the support staff in my current time clock. So what will happen is my system will go and connect to the time clock and find out and read all the information that's available in the time clock and then compare it with what we have in our HR system. Now, my system has compared employees successfully, which means it has compared all the employees in the time clock with the employees that are in the system, and it's found that these employees are missing. So I'm going to take the one employee that I just hired, and I'm going to transfer her to the time clock. And so all I need to do is click Synchronize. And now we've synchronized these employees successfully, at least the employee that I wanted to enroll. Now let's go and actually enroll the employee. Now keep in mind that all of this usually happens in the background at night. Nobody needs to actually go and physically do this except for the physical enrollment itself, the actual saving of the fingerprint. Somebody has to make sure that that's done correctly, which is obvious. So in my case, I'm going to enroll the fingerprint of Amy, but what we really want to demonstrate here is the integration. As you have seen, I have not logged out of my system yet, and we will be using my right hand index finger right here, and what will happen is we will send the signal to the clock to capture the fingerprint, and it will ask me to provide 3 different prints, because the system needs to have a clear print. Now you will find at this time still,
Please try again.
my clock does not recognize me, but the moment we are done with our registration, which is going to take place now, 1, 2, 3 good prints. Now
Thank you.
you notice the system has recognized Amy. This is how it happened automatically. So the system is configured to send the data directly to the time clock and to retrieve information from the time clock. So what's left now to show you in terms of integration is that I can read my time cards. Again, this is an activity I'm doing right now in order to demonstrate that all this is happening and can be initiated by the user. But the truth is there is no need to manually do any of these activities. The comparing, the synchronization, and the reading of time cards all happens in the background in a normal situation. The only thing that you really need to be involved with as a user would be the enrollment of fingerprints or keying in the card number for proximity cards. So now we've sent a message to the time clock to read the time records. And that means we can now go and see those records in the system when we go and take a look at our loaded batch timesheet. All of this is happening at the same time automatically. You find now that if I go and look at my clock in and clock out, I have a clock in at 22:51. So meanwhile, let's go and take a look real quick at the self-service of this employee, and then we'll come back to our time records. So here's our new employee, Amy. She's got a lot of activities going on already that she can get involved in. She can request training. She can request travel approval. She can request overtime pre-approval. She can request letters. She could enroll in benefits or take part in career planning activities, performance planning, risk management, onboarding activities, and much more. There are so many things that can happen for an employee as a start. They can look at their timesheets and their time cards, and they can see their own attendance, and they can also update their own profile. The employee could even clock in and clock out automatically right here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a quick leave request for this employee. Say that she wants to take leave on 30th of April, and she wants to use her administrative leave, which is the only type of leave that she's entitled to without any accrual from the start. So she will just put in a request. She could have put in a reason why she's requesting this. In my case, I will proceed. The request has gone to the organization unit head, which is Cedric. So we log in as Cedric, and we will see that there's a leave request from Amy right here, and we're going to go ahead and approve that. You see the detail. She had requested the leave to happen on the 30th, so she'll come back on the 1st, and it's currently with the organization unit head, which is Cedric. So we'll go ahead and approve. There was no other reason that was provided. The system does not have an email address yet for the recipient, so that's why it's giving me an error message. There are many other things that I can do here in the self-service. I could show you briefly. For example, there's clock in, clock out. As I mentioned, you have the option to submit a ticket to the help desk if you have a question that needs to go to HR or payroll department, which takes time for them to address. Instead of calling and emailing them, you can send it to the HR help desk. You can submit a suggestion on how to improve things in the organization, and you can provide all the details. It is basically an idea box that's online, and here you have all other activities that are happening through workflow. We will come back to these things later on in more detailed presentations. Well, now that we're at it, I might as well go and take a look at the timesheet for this employee that we just talked about, and I will find under the employee in and out timesheet format and the approval for that, I will see that there is a record here for Amy, and when we go specifically to the 22nd, we notice that she entered at 22:51. So now I can see the detail of the record that I had retrieved from Amy. So as a supervisor, I could actually edit things, and I could add my remarks and make changes and submit those changes if that's what I want to do. I can also add another timesheet detail entry and put my comments for that. Okay, and you can update these timesheet details. So basically, the color coding here, it has its own legend, has its own meaning, and you see right here this employee is on administrative leave scheduled on the 30th of April, so we're not going to flag her as absent at that time. Now there are many different timesheets in the system. Interact has more than 20 different timesheet formats that you can rely on, and what we do is we work with our clients to understand what is most applicable to them based on the type of requirements they have, and then we make sure that we use the same timesheet for you. So I'll just take one more look here. You will find a bit more information on the 22nd. I also can see that there was a manual entry even though it was not completed. If we look at other employees, for example, you see here employees that have clocked in and had a clock in and a lunch out and lunch in and so on. So we can actually track the purpose of that particular clock in, because you have function keys on your time clock that you can use for that. And then this information will be posted to the payroll. That's all we need to do. We have to approve things and post them, and that's all that is required. So this is a small set. The payroll is right here. You can run payroll, initialize, use the automatic timesheets for those people that don't have actual timesheets, because you will have a group of employees that are salaried for which you may not be tracking actual hours worked. For the other employees, the timesheets will come automatically into your through your time clocks. The system will interpret this information in a second step, which we call the project-based labor distribution timesheet, that will interpret the data and assign the correct overtime hours and all other rules that apply to your specific policies. And based on that information, it will send the correct details to the payroll. And so payroll can be produced automatically based on the time records that are picked up from the timesheets and from the time clocks, which are approved by supervisors and reviewed by employees and so on. Now, if you want to see some exceptional reports, you can see right here in our timesheet exception report. It'll tell you, for example, people that did not clock in on a specific day, they only clocked out right here. There's no clock in transaction. Or those people who had neither a clock in or a clock out, so they were absent. Or people that arrived late. They're showing me this way. They're giving me the details, so I could filter and say, give me all the employees who were late by, let's say, 15 minutes. And here they are. And it actually tells me how late they were. The system knows what their shift is if I have been using my shift planner correctly. So I can do a comparison of shift versus clock. And therefore, we can find, for example, for the month of January, all those people, what time their shift was supposed to start and what time they actually clocked in, and whether or not they clocked in on time or whether they were late or early in clocking in and out. All of this information, by the way, can always be exported to CSV or can be exported to Excel with a click of a button. That's all it takes. So, and that applies to all reports in Interact. So there are many, many reports that allow you to manage the data, to track exceptions, to find cases that need to be corrected or that require approval. And of course, we haven't discussed in detail the overtime and other options, the automatic calculations, how the system applies rules, how it can give you flex time for people that may be late by 10 minutes, how it can round and give you grace period and grace time, and so on. So there are many configuration options which are all part of the setup of the application and can be done through the system itself. If I wanted to set up the time clock with specific rules, I can go in here and look at the time clock and access control definition. I can even apply particular rules that apply only to certain time clock. For example, I can tell the system to ignore certain time transactions that happen within seconds of each other, so that you know that if a person clocks in twice within 5 seconds or 1 minute or 2 minutes, that must be a mistake. And therefore the system can automatically eliminate those records. Here I can set up standard rules about how to round and how to count a late clock in, early clock out, and so on. Here I can set up whether or not the system will be used as an access control terminal or a time clock or both. And we have many other options in the system. We can set up function keys We can set up rules about how we want to use the system. Everything in Interact is configurable, and that's what we do for our clients. Two more things we'd like to point out. One is position budgeting. If I were to log in, not as an employee, but as a user at a department level, we call this organization unit self-service. You can define as many organization units as you want, obviously, and you can do self-service there. So you could go in here and initiate requisitions for recruitment for the budget office. And that means that you can produce your budget requests. Each department can therefore issue requisitions, can do everything that they need to do at their level, so that you do not need to send each other spreadsheets anymore. Here I can go and look at my, or create a position budget for the year 2018, and I would start with specific position entries. And I will say that I need, for example, a coordinator, and I also need an accountant, and I need many more. In each case I will request a certain number of positions by a specific time, by a specific month, etc. And this information will then be submitted for approval. Once my budget is approved, I will be given position numbers. Against those position numbers, I can then issue requisitions. This is the budgeting and requisition process, then leads to the recruiting process, which turns into hiring and onboarding. Each one of them has its own modules. Each one of it has its own setup and configuration capabilities. I just want to point out also that for the budget office, for example, they can see their own list of employees. They do not need to go to HR to get this information. They can find it right here. This is the new employee that we just hired. You find that she's in the system, and that I can get her details. I don't need to wait for the HR department to provide me her information. Everything that I need to know is going to be there. If I want to search the applicant database, I can do that also. So basically, you have a fully integrated HR, payroll, time attendance, and talent management suite, which is completely web-based, self-service driven. All employees, supervisors, departments, everybody has self-service, and everybody can access the information that they need to have. They will receive alerts, they will be part of the workflow processes, and as you noticed, everything is integrated. I have never logged into any other software in order to send the information of the new employee which I hired and send it into the time clock. So if I want to show you my integration with payroll as a final step, without going into the detail, I can pick up Amy right here and find the support staff automatic timesheet. And you find here Amy Duplessis is a new employee. She's currently set up with 160 regular hours for the month, regular work hours, and you'll see that when we run her payroll, she's only getting paid for 152 because of the absent day, the leave day that she took. So let's take a look at her auto timesheet real quick. Keep in mind that I'm not using her attendance data to calculate her payroll, although I could. Maybe you want the system to calculate the overtime or some other information from the time clocks in order to calculate her payroll, and that can be done without any manual intervention. In my case, because she's an accountant, I'm not doing that. I've assigned her to a group that doesn't require it, but that depends entirely on you. So here you see all the data has already come into the system based on the settings that I have put in, although you saw that I entered very minimal information when I started by hiring this employee. So we will proceed. After this, you can produce trial payroll, then you produce final payroll, and so on. Here you see a timesheet that shows me again that this employee is on administrative leave on the 30th of April. So in summary, Interact HRMS is an enterprise system that allows you to manage all your data in one system. Everything is seamlessly integrated. There's only one product which has 85 modules, and that includes scheduling, that includes the HRMS, that includes the payroll and the time attendance and everything else too. Thank you, and we hope that you will consider these products for your use also.